able leadership of the executive governor, he likes to push things all the way through until he gets a result. So, to minimize time and to reduce the time between us and getting some refreshments, I'd like to introduce the next session. And the first person that I'd like to invite up is the lead discussant in this particular panel session. He's a man that I know very well. I'm very mindful of his passion and his drive. He's the former governor of Lagos State. He's the current Honorable Minister for Power, Works and Housing. His name, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Babatunde Fashola. A big round of applause for him. Thank you. Okay, so our lead discussant is up here, and to join him so that it doesn't get too cozy and too lonely, I'm going to invite up architect Olamilekan Adegbite, who is the Honorable Commissioner for Works and Infrastructure in Ogun State. I didn't hear any clapping for this gentleman, and I'm really not enthused. Okay. The other panelists are Dr. George Banjo, who's a transportation expert, which means that he's probably going to get here as quickly as possible. But while he's making his way up and while you're applauding his effort, I'm also going to invite, I didn't hear the applause for him, Captain Eddie Boyo of Overland Airways. Captain Boyo, please come up onto the podium. Next is from Planet Projects Limited, Mr. Abiodun Otunola. Should I do the clapping myself, or? Thank you. And to moderate this session is a gentleman that I've heard moderate a number of these types of sessions in the past, a man who gives great advice. His name is Mr. Akunle Elebute. He's a partner and head of advisory services at KPMG. Mr. Elebute, welcome onto the podium. Thank you.
Well, time for presentation.
Okay, so I'm just going to kick off by asking the lead discussant, the Honourable Minister for Power and Infrastructure, Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, to please start the session. Thank you.
Well, the Governor of Ogun State, my brother, his lovely wife, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ministers, Your Royal Majesties, my moderator, and fellow discussants, it's a pleasure to be in Ogun again. And I think I'd like to start out by saying that this government in Ogun has done a good job. I say so because I was here at the very first session, first of this summit in 2012, and there was a lot of stories then, hue and cry, about demolitions, and but it was clear, speaking to the governor, his team, and also his parliament and his judiciary, who I interacted with from time to time, that they had a plan. And even though there wasn't money at the time, the governor was chasing me, asking for his pay, that so many of his residents were working in Lagos. Inevitably, the money followed the plan, and Ogun's infrastructure, still a work in progress, has clearly been renewed. And if you were here in 2011 and today, you will see unmistakable difference. And I must salute Architect Adigbite here, who is one of the discussants, and he will perhaps shed more light about what really is the story behind. But that said, let me acknowledge also the focal areas of the summit as a whole, and to say that I agree on agriculture, I agree on environment, and I agree on transportation. They are critical drivers for inclusion. And but I would rather, if the choice were mine, put environment first, because it is really the heart of the matter. The environment is what determines whether this civilization will even exist and survive in a way to feed itself and to move itself around. But that said, and I know that Mrs. I think one Saturday morning several years ago on Channels TV, and it has grown. And Your Excellency, Mrs. Amosun, thank you very much for focusing this state on very important issues. Now that I've cleared my route, infrastructure as a catalyst for socio-economic development is the subject I have to speak about. And I'd just like to say very quickly that investments in infrastructure do three broad things. They catalyze the economy, and I will explain how I see that. They increase capital appreciation and therefore expand existing wealth and help new wealth also to emerge. And then they become the driver for sustained recurrent income. Now, very quickly, in terms of economic catalysis, every infrastructure intervention by man almost inevitably involves the use of land. So, from my current responsibility as Minister for Power, Works and Housing, every time we need to build either a transmission line or a housing estate, or indeed a road, it requires acquisition of land. And what inevitably then follows is that people who are holding land that was either to perhaps only useful for farming and only useful for the preservation of traditional rights begin to get value in measurable terms for their land, either by way of compensation, resettlement, relocation, and sometimes they trade the land for equity in the project that is to be developed. So, and that's when the catalysis start. Compensation, and from then on, of course, project studies for environmental compliance and ultimate sustainability requires that experts are involved, hired and engaged to deliver on environmental impact in populated places. And the reason is very simple. That is where infrastructure is often concentrated. Better roads, better electricity, much more reliable power and water supply. And that is why cities are more congested. What we are dealing with now in the proposal that we have made to